We're in John chapter 6. If you want to find your way there, there's also a handout that was available, and there's some on the table over there if you haven't picked up one of those. Honestly, just read through that, fill in the lines, and you're good. You got it. You got it all. You don't even need to listen. But you do need to stay because we're going to have communion, and that's always a special moment. So we want to do that. Worship was significant for me this morning. The second song that we sang, a friend of mine literally gave his life as a missionary in Turkey. He's the only American to have been allowed to be buried in the country of Turkey in the last 100 years. Such were the relationships that he built with people over there. And that was one of the songs that we sang at his graveside. So we sing this song, and suddenly I'm standing on a hill in the middle of Turkey on the Euphrates River, and there's this white sarcophagus there, and I'm singing over my friend. So it's like, oh, don't do that to me. I got to get up here, act like I know what I'm doing. And so it's like, oh, my goodness. But, yeah, it's amazing how those songs just kind of penetrate, isn't it? And they just sink in there, and they settle in on memories and experiences you've had, and it really touches you. And today's sermon won't be anywhere near that good, but the song was. So that's pretty cool. So we're in John chapter 6. We're going to be kind of parachuting into this passage. So I just wanted to remind you, why did John write what he wrote? And in the notes it says, oh, looky there. Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book, but these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you might have life in his name. That's why John's writing what he wrote. There's a lot of other things that Jesus did, a lot of other things that he said. This isn't the list of everything that's ever been communicated by Jesus to humanity. That's not the point. The point is, I want you to believe. I want you to believe, because if you believe, you have life. And so John said, I'm picking things out on purpose, specific things that I want to talk about. And there's a pattern that John uses so that it's important, I guess, for me, kind of coming from that Bible teacher point of view, for you to be able to own the Gospel of John, to where it's not just, oh yeah, I've read that verse and I think I remember John 3:16 sort of, but to where you actually understand the book. That what John does is he gives us either a miracle and or a teaching, and then he gives us a response. And then he moves to the next event. And he does that over and over again. Jesus did this, and these people reacted this way. Jesus said this, and these people reacted this way. And he's doing that kind of like a literary mirror. He's just holding it up in front of you, and he's going, hey, Jesus did this, and these people reacted this way. How are you going to react? He's always just presenting us with this opportunity to believe. And that's kind of how the book is set up, is so that we can do that. And we've already covered some of them, right? Jesus turns the water into wine, and what does he say? His disciples believed. How about you? Nicodemus comes, and they have this incredible conversation. And Nicodemus is kind of confused, but we know he hangs in there because at the end of the book, we see him again, and he's there for the burial of Jesus after the crucifixion. We know that Nicodemus comes along, and so he's going, hey, Nicodemus came, and he had questions, and he wasn't really sure about everything, but he hung in there. How about you? What are you doing? He talks about the woman at the well and the whole city, and it says that the whole town eventually, after 2 days, comes to believe. And he's, how about you? He's just putting it in front of us, putting it in front of us. The father with a sick son, he comes and asks Jesus to heal him, and he said, will you come with me? And Jesus said, no, I'm not going with you. Just go home. He's going to be fine. You ever imagine what it was like for that guy on the way home? It took him a day to get there. On the way home, and he's going, what am I going to tell my wife when she finds out I didn't bring the miracle guy with me? I'm in trouble here. The servants meet him, and his son is healed, and it says his whole family believed. And John's going, what about you? What about you? Are you going to believe? Chapter 6 of John is this long narrative, and it starts with 2 big miracles, followed by a discussion the next day. We know more about this 24-hour period in Jesus' life than any other 24-hour period. We've got more details. This is the one miracle that's recorded in all four Gospels, other than the resurrection. We know a lot about this day. And John doesn't cover everything that happened, but he covers the part that he thinks is significant. And so we get these two great miracles, and then the next day we get these two very different responses. So the first response that we get, and it's not just from the crowd, it says it's from some of his disciples, followers, people who had said, hey, I'm signed up, I'm in the group, I want to join, I want to be a part. Normally a rabbi picked who followed him. Jesus was saying, if you want to come, you can come. You're going to have to pick up your cross and follow me. Ooh, that sounds, right? But he's inviting people to come. And at the end of these two great miracles and the conversation that happens the next day, it says many of his disciples heard what Jesus said, and they said, it's a hard saying. Who can listen to it? And so from this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed him. And when they leave, Jesus turns to the 12 and says, what about you guys? You hanging in there? You going? What's happening here? And Peter says to him, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We believe and know that you are the Holy One of God. Two completely different responses. Same group of people sees the same exact miracles. Part of them say, I'm out. Part of them say, I'm absolutely in. And John's doing that on purpose, because he's going to put these two miracles in front of us, and he's going to do the same thing to us, and he's going to say, are you in? Or are you part of the group that's going home? Which group are you in? How are you going to respond to what Jesus says and what Jesus does? So we have the account of the miraculous lunch, right? We're familiar with that story? Yes. Well, a couple of us. That's good. Right? It's a feeding of 5,000. Jesus has got 5 dinner rolls and 2 fish sticks. That's what he's got to work with. He feeds 5,000 people. It's at the end of this discussion that real conversation and real point of choice comes in. Because the people that he's having the conversation with are the people that ate the lunch the day before. They were a part of this thing. It wasn't that they just heard about it. They didn't just read about it. Somebody didn't post it on Facebook. This was, I ate that food. That was miraculous. I was there. I watched it multiply. These are the people that are a part of that. And yet we see these two different responses. Same set of circumstances, same words, entirely different responses. Last week, Sam talked about that cancerous thing of unbelief that can metastasize into our body, our soul, and our mind, and it leads us away from the very person who could give us life. And we're going to watch that process happen over the next couple of weeks as we go through John chapter 6. Our passage begins with, after this. So by way of timeline, let's just kind of set the stage, because I said we know more about this 24 hours than any other. So the disciples have been gone. They're out on their first 2x2 mission. Remember, Jesus gets them together and says, here's what I want you to do, and I want you to go say these things and walk off into these different towns and villages, and he sends them off 2x2, and they've been out on their first missionary tour, right? So the disciples have been gone, and they're on their way back. They are coming back to the rendezvous point. During the time that they've been gone, John the Baptist was beheaded. And so as the disciples are coming back, they're dealing with all of this stuff. First of all, they want to tell all the amazing stories about the things that happened, right? I mean, even the demons were submitting to us. It was incredible, and Jesus saying, yeah, you should think about your name being written in the book of life, not, and so they're debriefing what happened during the event. Several of these men had been disciples for John the Baptist before they switched over and started to follow Jesus. Jesus is related to John the Baptist via family relationship. It's an incredible thing, and his death is a shock to everybody. And these guys, they're trying to process all of this. They're trying to do all of this. And one of the accounts says that they couldn't even find time nor place to even have lunch. There was such a big crowd, and they just kept pressing. And so Jesus says to the guys, hey, one of you's got a boat. Let's get in the boat and get out of here. Let's get away from these people. And then what happens? No, you got ahead of it. Jesus and his disciples are in a boat trying to stay away from the crowd. The crowd can see the boat. They're walking along the shore, picking up people as they go. By the time Jesus and his disciples get to the other side, there's thousands of people have managed to accumulate. This is the very group that Jesus is trying to get away from. And they've chased him down. And it says he has mercy and compassion upon them because he perceives of them as sheep without a shepherd who are harassed and oppressed. Is that how you react when the people you're trying to get away from finally get to you? With that kind of compassion and mercy? There's a lot in here. We're not going to take all that time. That's what's going on. That gets us to John chapter 6. And Justin's going to come and read the first 13 verses out of John chapter 6. There you go, buddy. And there's the button. You're good.
So we're in John 6, verse 1. After this, Jesus went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias, and a large crowd was following him because they saw the signs that he was doing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand. Lifting up his eyes then, and seeing that a large crowd was coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread, so that these people may eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread would not be enough for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what are they for so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down, about 5,000 in number. Jesus then took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated, so also the fish, as much as they wanted. And when they had eaten their fill, he told his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments, that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up and filled the 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten.
Thanks. Justin's going to read the next 2 verses in just a second, but I want you to stop and get into the story because it's so easy for us to just kind of pass this over. Did you ever try to figure out where was the food being multiplied? Right? Jesus has got 5 dinner rolls and 2 fish sticks, and he's got them in his hand. He's going to feed, and depending on how you read it, either 5,000 humans or 5,000 males plus the other humans that were there. So it's a little hard to know by the language exactly what is meant, but it's at least 5,000, could be double that. He's got 5 dinner rolls and 2 fish sticks. He blesses them, and he starts to give it away. Does it multiply in his hands or in the hands of the disciples? Because they got to go hand it out. And do they run out and have to come back and get more from Jesus, and then they go back out and they do it again? Or does it just keep multiplying in their hands as they're doing it? This is really something, guys. This is going to blow their minds. They've never seen anything like this before in their lives. This is phenomenal stuff. And they started the same place we would start, right? Philip's basically going, hey, kind of to put it in our scenario, if we had $30,000, we couldn't buy a Happy Meal for everybody in the place. Jesus, we're not even close to that. Even if Judas put the money back in that he's been taken out of the bag, we wouldn't have $30,000 to buy Happy Meals for everybody. We aren't even close. And Jesus is just going, yeah, I know. This is going to be fun. And he just starts, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Don't miss that. Can you imagine? What would you have done? Put some in your pocket and see if it grows again, you know? I mean, look at that. I put 2 in my hand. I got 6 more in my hands. This is a phenomenal event. It's so phenomenal that the crowds decide to do this. So Justin's back. He's going to read these last 2 verses.
When the people saw the sign that he had done, they said, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." Perceiving then that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, Jesus withdrew again to the mountain by himself.
Thanks, man. Our idea of Messiah is pretty clear, and it's because we're looking back on it and the apostles are explaining it to us, so we're able to look at it and be fairly clear. In this day, the idea that, yeah, there's going to be a Messiah. What's his name? Who's he going to be? Is he going to be the prophet? Is he going to be Elijah? They thought somebody was coming. They weren't exactly sure which Old Testament name to pick up. And one of those names was this fact of the prophet, capitalized, the guy that Moses said was going to follow him. So these people are picking up on the idea that, hey, you know the guy with the free lunch? He might be the guy we're waiting for. He might be the guy we're looking for. So they start to pick up on that idea. And certainly the idea of having a king who provides you food instead of taxes you so he can buy his own food, that's a better king than any king we've ever seen before. It's all in the context of what's happening, and they say that they want to make him king. Just hang on to that. Just hang on to that. We're going to come back to it later, but just tuck it away for now. As I said, this is the biggest thing that's ever happened to the disciples. There's a reason why it's in all four Gospels. Right? When Jesus' disciples got together and started talking about what it was like to walk with Jesus after he ascended to heaven, and they're just telling the story, every one of them tells this story. They don't all tell all the stories, but they all tell this one. This is the most phenomenal thing that's ever happened in their life. And they were part of it. They were part of the bread. Now, in all fairness, we're going to talk now about maybe what they should have learned while that happened. But again, if you put yourself in that environment, you're not processing. You're not sitting there going, let me think about what I'm learning from this event. You're just going, oh my gosh, watch this. I got more. I got more. This is amazing. They're not processing. We're processing. We get the advantage of that. But maybe some things they should have learned in regards to this situation. So it's in your notes. The situation is not out of control. It's just out of your control. The next time you need $30,000, the situation is not out of control. It's out of your control. See, Jesus didn't need any money. He didn't need any supplies. He didn't need any advice, and he didn't need any help. He was the sufficient answer. The circumstances are not the determining factor here. Jesus is the determining factor here. Jesus is the determining factor here. And he is always the determining factor in every situation. Have we learned that lesson? Have we learned that lesson? That Jesus is the determining factor? Because for a lot of us, it's our emotions. It's our perceptions. It's whether or not we have the $30,000 or not. Those are the things that start to determine for us our responses. And the simple fact is the situation is not out of control. It's just out of our control. Jesus knew what he was going to do. He had a plan. He had it figured out. Which leads to the next one. Just because you don't know what to do doesn't mean that Jesus doesn't know what he's going to do. That's good. I'll say it again. Just because you don't know what to do does not mean that Jesus does not know what he's going to do. I love it. John's very specific. He says that when Jesus asked Philip, where are we going to get food to feed all of these people? Jesus already knew what he was going to do before he asked the question. So why does he ask the question? He's trying to draw Philip into what's about to happen. Say, hey, Philip, I need you to pay attention. What's going to happen next is important. You need to see this. You need to learn something. So pay attention. He's drawing him in. Jesus is not uninformed, and he's not waiting for us to fill him in. Have you ever prayed that way? Like Jesus doesn't know what's going on? Oh man, God, you got to pay attention over here. We're in trouble. Like he got distracted or something, and he was looking somewhere else, and he missed what was going on. I mean, we pray that way, though, don't we? Sometimes, like we think we're having to fill Jesus in because he's a little behind. He hasn't been paying attention. He hasn't been watching. Just because we don't know what to do doesn't mean Jesus doesn't know what he's going to do. Because he has a plan, and he's inviting us into it. Sometimes we get this idea that Jesus is kind of reacting like a spiritual ninja with superpowers. You know, he's just going around and something happens, and so he responds, and then something else happens, and he responds, and something else happens, and then he jumps and he does his. Jesus knows what's going on before he gets there. He's not reacting to anything. He's walking into the situation knowing exactly what he's going to do, when he's going to do it, how he's going to do it. We're the ones that are caught off guard, not him, because he has this plan. He knows exactly what he's doing. As I said, John makes it really clear, and it's significant that he brings that out, that when he asks Philip, what are we going to do? He already knows. He already knows. The input was, Philip, pay attention. Not, Philip, I need help. Philip, pay attention. Have you ever, in the midst of a situation, come to Jesus and said, Jesus, what should I be looking at right now? Because usually if you're in a situation, you're already looking at something. You're looking at how big the crowd is. You're looking at how little money you have. You're looking at the little bag lunch you stole from a kid in the crowd. Whatever it is you're looking at something. And based on what you're looking at, you're making all your evaluations. And you want Jesus to look at it the same way you're looking at it, and then you want him to get upset, and then you want him to fix it. What happens if you get in the situation and say, Jesus, what should I be looking at? To which the answer would be, me. Right? Jesus wants you to look at him. Not the circumstances, not the situation, not the resources or lack of resources. He wants you to look at him. Because he already has a plan. He knows what he's going to do. Doesn't need any help. Here we go. This next one I think is pretty important, and that is that Jesus is a God of abundance and not scarcity. He is a God of abundance and not scarcity. He is a God of more than enough, not a God of barely enough. I say that because our human perspective is almost always rooted in this idea of scarcity. We worry about running out of money. We talk about wasting time. We talk about wasting energy. We talk about wasting resources. We worry about running out of water or whatever. We worry that we're worrying. Our existence is wrapped up and defined in the idea of scarcity. That there's only so many cookies, and if you're at the end of the line, they're going to run out and you won't get yours. So we have to push to the front of the line. We have to elbow the other person out of the way because I want my cookie and there's not enough cookies to go around. And because there aren't enough, I have to make sure that I get mine. These people are only going to like so many people. There's a scarcity of their friendship. I have to push my way in to make sure that I'm one of the people on the inside of the group. There are so many different ways that we use scarcity as the definition of how we are explaining the event we're in. And I need you to understand that God is not a God of scarcity. He's got enough cookies for everybody. In this case, he has enough dinner rolls and fish sticks for everybody. You don't have to push your way to the front. You don't have to beat out the other guy. You don't have to get there first. You don't have to show up early. He is the God of more than enough. He is not the God of scarcity. He's not the God of almost enough or barely enough. He's the God of abundance. There's this great verse in Corinthians where it says that God is the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our distress, so that we are able to comfort those who are in distress with the comfort that we ourselves have received. What's that tell you? That when God brings you comfort, he brings you enough, not so that you can just get through whatever your event is, but so that you can take the excess comfort you've received and help other people with the event they're going through. If we can ever switch this in our head, that the kingdom of God does not work off of scarcity, it works off of abundance. The psalmist in the Old Testament tried to capture that thought when he said, God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. What's he saying? He's saying, God's got enough. God's got enough. Whatever you need, God has enough. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Grace is greater than sin. The stuff that God brings, he brings in abundance. It's more than we need, not just barely enough or not quite enough. It's everything we need. And then, kind of like a good dad, Jesus lets us help, but he doesn't need our help. He lets us help, but he doesn't need our help. Right? I mean, that's the way it is when the kids help you with something at home. Right? They mess it up. They make it slower. You have to do it over after they're done helping. I mean, it's just the way it is. You need to understand that Jesus doesn't need our help, but he lets us help. It's just the way it works. I mean, in this situation, he had what? He had five dinner rolls, 2 fish sticks, right? They fed 5,000 people, and they had 12 baskets left over. All right? 5 dinner rolls, 2 fish sticks, 5,000 people, 12 baskets left over. There's another account where Jesus fed 4,000 people. You know why he only fed 4,000 people? Because he had 7 rolls to start with and a few fish. You give Jesus 7 rolls and a few fish, you get food for 4,000 with only 7 baskets left over. But if you only give him 5 rolls and 2 fish sticks, you get food for 5,000 people and you got 12 baskets left over. And if you give him nothing, he makes the universe. Jesus lets us help, but he doesn't need our help. In fact, it seems like the more we help him, the less we get. The more involved we are, the less productive the miracle. Because we would do it the other way around, right? It's like, hey, I got 5 loaves and 2 fish. We got 5,000 food for 5,000 and 12 baskets left over. Dude, let's give him 7 rolls and a bunch of fish, and let's see what he does with that. Our thought would be he'd do more. Turns out he does less. And when we leave him alone, he makes the universe. Pretty cool. He lets us help. He doesn't need our help. Well, you'd have thought maybe the disciples would have learned some of these things, might have dawned on them, but like I say, I don't think we should be too hard on them because it's a pretty magnificent thing that's happening in front of them, and most of them are not really debriefing the day's events. They're just going, oh my, that's about as deep as we've gotten so far. But it is going to take us into the next event. So the first thing that happens after we've collected up all the food that's left over, and they got the baskets over there, and everybody's kind of, whoa, is that Jesus makes the disciples get in the boat and head for the other side. One of the other gospel writers says he made them get in the boat. Why? Because nobody wants to leave on that day. I mean, they've never been this popular. They've never had this big a crowd, right? This is Jesus saying, let's cut off the Instagram account, and we just picked up 5,000 new followers in about an hour and a half. And Jesus is going, yeah, that's a good time to shut it down. The disciples are going, you have got to be kidding me. We're not shutting anything down. We're hanging around, and we're going to see if we can make this thing even bigger than it is. I mean, they want to make him king. That's like pretty cool. My rabbi becomes king. That means I'm on the inside. I'll at least get a cabinet job out of this. I'm going to get something special. This is the height of popularity. This is the height of the crowd size. It's never been bigger. It's never been better. And Jesus says, hey, why don't you guys go get in the boat and take off? I don't want to get in the boat, and I don't want to take off. I want to hang around. I've never been as cool as I am right now. I was one of the guys that got the blessed food and got to go take the blessed food to the hungry crowd, and I got to watch it multiply in my hands, and I got to feed hundreds and hundreds of people today. I've never been this cool. Don't make me go home. And Jesus says, I need to get in the boat and take off. And then he dismisses the crowd by himself. And so we have the disciples who are out in the boat. The crowd is all walking home. And Jesus goes up on the mountain to pray. Devin's going to come and read to us the second miracle within hours. We're talking hours. The big miracle of the 5,000 and now the walking on the water. Thanks, Devin.
When evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into the boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. It was now dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea became rough because a strong wind was blowing. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and coming near the boat, and they were frightened. But he said to them, "It is I, do not be afraid." Then they were glad to take him onto the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land to which they were going.
Thanks. Hey, for those of you that don't know, Justin made like the best decision in his life ever, and he's going to marry that girl right there. So that's got anything to do with walking on water, but other than he's got that silly grin on his face like he is walking on water, but outside of that. The disciples show this amazing ability to completely lack connecting what just happened with what they are in the middle of. Right? I mean, it is the biggest thing that's ever happened in their life. And a few hours later, here they are rowing, going, oh my God, this is horrible. Can't believe Jesus made us get in this boat. One of the gospel writers, I love this, says they were harassed in rowing. You ever been harassed in rowing? Like you're just desperately trying to get from here to there. That's all I want to do. I want to get from here to there. Everything's working against you, right? It's one of those days when you've been asked to step out of line for additional screening at the airport, right? You ever had that? You ever had that joy? That's always fun, I paid money for that doggone TSA pre-check, and then you have been pulled aside for additional screening. Oh, great, And there you go. Do the whole thing, right? I mean, life just does that to us. We're just trying to get from here to here. We're not trying to do any miraculous things. We're not trying to do anything special. It's not all that hard. We've been in a boat lots of times. We know how to use the oars. This isn't a big deal. And suddenly everything's against you. Everything's against you, right? It's that simple little project at home, and it's only your 4th time to Home Depot to pick up more supplies for something you forgot when you started, right? I mean, we all know the feeling, right? We get that. That's where the disciples are. And here they are, rowing in the boat. And I've always loved this. I mean, you got Peter and Andrew, you got James and John. They are boat owners. They're fishermen. It's probably okay. You got Simon the Zealot, Matthew the tax collector. They're not so good in the boat. That's really not their thing. So, they're 3 hours into this. How long into it before Peter was cussing at Matthew about what he was doing on the oars? I mean, Honestly, guys, this is just a real life situation here. And these guys are harassed and rowing. It's not working. And you got Matthew over there with his oar. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he's trying to help. I mean, the whole thing is just degenerating right in front of us. And they're going, everything is just out of control. Yeah, is it? Is it? Remember, Jesus knows what he's doing. Jesus has a plan. Jesus doesn't need our help. They haven't learned any of those lessons. What was Jesus thinking when he made us get in the boat in the middle of a storm? What kind of idea was that? You'd think a guy that was as smart as Jesus would know you shouldn't get in a boat in the middle of a storm. He doesn't know what's going on here. Or does he? Maybe he does. They're exhausted from hours of rowing, and we're still in the storm, and we're still a long ways from our destination. And there's no answer here. Or is there? They haven't learned anything from what happened before. And I love this part. When Jesus shows up, the storm ceases, the boat arrives to the shore, and though they are tired, they are safe. When Jesus shows up, the storm stops, they are immediately to the shore. And though they are tired, because I don't know if you've ever rowed for 3 hours, but they are tired, but they are safe. They are safe. So I'll tell you that following Jesus, obeying Jesus, being in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing is not always easy. But if it was Jesus' idea and not yours, it's going to work out somehow. If it was Jesus' idea, don't confuse that with, it was my idea and I wanted Jesus to bless it. Jesus made the disciples get in the boat. It was his idea. And if it's his idea, it will work. And you will arrive on shore. You may be tired, but you'll be safe. And I will tell you that in the most ultimate of situations, you may arrive on a shore in heaven instead of a shore on this planet, but you will arrive. And though you are tired, you will be safe. If Jesus says, get in the boat, get in the boat. And the circumstances don't matter. I ask you to hang on to that little idea that they wanted to go and make him king. I will tell you that the people who wanted to make him king are the ones at the end of chapter 6 that say, it's too tough, we're going home. Okay? Make those connections. They eat the miraculous food. They want to make him king. The next day they go home. You see, you don't make him king. You obey him because he is already the king. And that's the key here. You don't make him king. You obey him because he is already king. You see, the problem with making him king is that you can unmake him king as soon as he does something you don't like, or he does something in the way that you don't want him to do it. But if you are obeying him, serving him, following him, trusting him because he is king, then how and when it plays out is up to him. The king said, get in the boat. You get in the boat and you row. And you row whether it looks like rowing is working or not. Because it's not up to you to figure it out. The results are not up to you. It's up to Jesus. He's king. And if you've just decided to kind of make him king, well, you know, I'm just going to kind of add this King Jesus thing to my life. Then as soon as he tells you to get in the boat and you are harassed in rowing, you head to the shore and say, I'm not doing that. I'm not obeying. I'm not following. It's not working out well. It's not easy. I thought it would be better. I thought people would like me more. I thought I'd have more popularity, more money. I would have better health. I would have whatever, whatever, whatever. If you're just making him king because you think it's going to work out better, and basically you're in charge telling him what to do, it's never going to work. You've got to just bow your knee and say, he's king. And because he's king, I do what he says. And if that's feed 5,000 people, or that's get in a boat in the middle of a storm and row into the wind, doesn't matter. He is king, not I've made him king. Do you see that difference? I heard a lady say years ago that the only rewards in heaven are for obedience and faithfulness. I don't know that she's a prophet and she didn't quote a particular Bible verse, but I've never forgotten what she said because it hit me so hard when she said it. That the only rewards in heaven are for obedience and faithfulness. We think that rewards are for results. And here she was telling this young pastor, dude, it's not about results. It's about obedience and faithfulness. Did he say get in the boat? Yeah. Did you get in the boat? Yeah. Good, you win. Did you row the whole time you were in the boat? Yeah. Good, you win. And nobody asked you how far you got or how tired you were or whether anybody was impressed at how well you rowed the boat. Were you obedient? Were you faithful? That's all that matters because he's the king. And the results of the kingdom are up to the king, not up to the guys in the boat. Are you making him king, or are you obeying him because he is the king? Two different perspectives, two completely different answers in the end. One group walked away. The other group hung in there. Where are we? So Jesus, we pause just before communion now to say that you are the king. You're not the king because we think you are. We're not the king because we said you are. You're not the king because we want you to be. You're not the king because we're letting you be. You are the king. And there is no other name by which humans can be saved than the name of the king. You are king. And we acknowledge that and submit to that. Thank you for the gift of your salvation that lets us be in your kingdom. In your name we pray. Amen.